Welcome everybody to Main Street Planning Group's meeting on long-term care featuring John Gibbons. If you would put yourselves on mute right now, I'd appreciate it. Today is the end of Long-Term Care Awareness Month, but I think that long-term care awareness should be practiced every day. It's such an important topic and one that's only going to get more important as people's needs continually change. I want to go over a few salient points before we get started. Let's see if we can, I have to share the screen first here. I just had it. Everybody see that? No?
No, sir.
Here we go. How about now? We all good?
Yes.
All right. So today, for those that don't know me, I'm in a Main Street Planning Group. I think we know everybody here. What we do, we're full service wholesale brokerage. Some of the things we've been doing in the long-term care space, we've been talking about long-term care every day this month for Long-Term Care Awareness Month. We've been talking about on our radio show. We've had Tom Swazi, who's just put his hat in the ring for governor of New York, talking about long-term care and his experiences. In addition, his proposal that he has into the federal government about long-term care. The government realizes that this is a big, big expense if people become impoverished and need to go to Medicaid. We as advisors know it's a big problem and people need to address it. And one of the things I like to suggest to everyone is to have that conversation with every client. And the conversation that I would have is, and the conversation I would ask is, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan? Do your parents have a plan? Do your children have a plan? I think just asking if you have a plan and bringing up the topic is sufficient to bring awareness. And by not bringing up the topic, you're not doing the right thing for your clients. And then the next thing I like to ask people under number 2 is ask if they reviewed their plan with their family members, kids, parents, siblings. Every good team has a plan. Anytime you're in a sporting event, any type of team, you got a plan, okay? And every good team has reserves and has a backup plan. What ifs? So my plan may be that I want my daughter to fly in here from Hawaii if I'm hurt, okay? Oh, that may not be a practical plan. She may be, married, children. She's not married yet or have children yet. But I need to know what my backup plan is. And in having these discussions, you do 2 things. One, many people realize they don't have a plan, and insurance can be part of that plan. 2, engaging the other family members all of a sudden builds up referrals and other things automatically as you start discussing their family world and where they're going and where their children are going. The third bit of advice I have is don't sell on price. Okay, and I know my friend Larry Shearer, who's an estate planning attorney, and many estate planning attorneys and other advisors and clients, their first words out of their mouth when you say long-term care is it's expensive. Right, Larry? You said that to me, right? We don't talk about it being expensive. Okay, that's not what we talk about. Okay? Talk about reallocating your assets, not spending money. It's about reallocating your assets. People with $1 million portfolios, $10 million portfolios, $200,000 portfolios need some sort of long-term care plan. 1% of your portfolio to protect it all and to show ways of reallocating monies to support long-term care is the solution. not how much does it cost. If you're going in with the thought process of it's expensive or it costs a lot, that's not necessarily true. There are solutions, and I want to talk about that. So I like to ask, would you pay 1% to protect it? You could protect it with life insurance. You could protect it with long-term care. I want to talk about the benefits of why you need a policy, not being a burden, financial independence, and living independently with your golden ticket. You know, even if I'm sitting with $10 million, wouldn't it be nice to have that ticket to say, hey, I need help. Here's somebody to call. I need somebody to help me coordinate my care or my spouse's care. You know, it's very important. And having a great policy is going to give you that golden ticket of somebody to call and set you up for that care. And then number 5, and this I find every day, okay, even to some of the people on this call that are reps, and I talk about this a lot. Don't sell Maseratis to clients who need Volvos and Chevys. Okay, it's a big deal. And the failure of the New York State Partnership for Long-Term Care was just that, and John can attest to that. Because when you start putting in compound inflation and you know, a lot of reps that are in the financial business, they want to know what's the maximum amount of long-term care I can buy. It's not about the maximum amount of long-term care you can buy. It's about protecting your assets or 50% amounts. I like it, look at it as co-insurance. Okay, we're not going to insure all your, but we're going to have something that'll get you to the next level, whether it's, you know, planning for Medicaid or whatever else. We need something to get you to that next step or give you that independence to get into that home and do the type of things. Do not try and cover everything with one policy. I think it's a big mistake. And I see it happening every day, especially from financial advisors. Okay, my client wants long-term care, and I'm going to tell you something. 50% of the conversations that we're having on long-term care with agents that call me every day, 50% of them are generated from the client, not even the agent. Isn't that insane? The client's asking them, hey, what should I do about this? And then all of a sudden the agent goes into scramble mode and goes, let's do this, let's do that, let's try this. No, you should be directing this conversation. You shouldn't be sitting there and a client coming to you and asking you, what is this product? What am I doing? It should be come out in natural conversation, because you have to have that, going back to number 1, have that conversation and make sure that you're the expert walking in. The last thing that I recommend is to ask if any family members have used outside assistance or need care or in a nursing home, and then talk about it. Talk about not just how expensive it is, but what's the emotional strain on themselves who needing care. You know, independent people don't like to ask for help. We know that, okay? Or their spouses, or you maybe taking care of your parents, as I did, as many people have, or taking care of someone else. You know, find out who the caregivers and that's really the pain point here. And it's real. And, you know, I've done seminar after seminar. I talk about the percentages and the 70% and 98% and the 84%, all bull crap. Listen, we're all going to need some sort of help at some point. But the biggest thing is we all need a plan, because in absence of a plan, whether it be insurance or moving money around or reallocating or doing something legal, in absence of a plan, we're all headed for disaster. So that's my spiel for today, that I just kind of want to preempt John, who's an expert in long-term care, who's been doing this for a number of years with all the top insurance companies, now with probably the sole insurance company doing standalone long-term care, and that's John Gibbons. And again, anybody have any questions before I move on to John? Anything at all? Okay. John, take it away. I will stop sharing my screen. Let you do your thing.
Great. Morning, everybody. My screen up here. Okay. So yes, I've been with Mutual of Omaha now about 10, 11 months. Prior to that, I was 4 years with One America, and prior to that, it was 15 years plus with Genworth on the traditional side. So I want to talk about just sales ideas today and ways to position this. So if you look here, the cost of care nationally is $55,000 per home, care 56 for assisted living, and 104 for private room. Now I know much more expensive out east, especially New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, right? But here's the thing: we have a cost of care calculator on our sales professional access, the SPA. So if you're appointed with us, you can go out to this, and you can pick your state here, and you can pick a time in the future. You want to see what that cost is going to be. So here's a good stat you may want to write down. The average person that buys long-term care is age 57. All right, but so let's round down to 55, make it easy. The average claimant is age 79. So let's go up to age 80. So I buy it in my mid-50s, where you want to buy it while you're younger and you're healthy and it's less expensive. I might not use it for 25 years. So I'm going to put 25 years out here, and it's showing $224,000 a year projected cost. So by year, New York, it's probably going to be 270-some thousand. All right. And this would show you. So Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's some other good stats to write down. The average life expectancy, somebody with Alzheimer's, is 9 years. For Parkinson's, it's 15 years. For MS, 22.5 years. So that doesn't mean look at the average. So that means half of them are longer than that. So if it's dementia, Alzheimer's, half of them are longer than 9 years. So let's say you have a 9 or 10-year event at $224,000. That's over $2 million. If I'm in New York, it's 2.5 to 3 million. What's that going to do to your portfolio? Is that going to wipe it out? Is that going to put a major debt in it? So if it's me on claim using this, or me spending the money, what's Mrs. Jones going to live off of? So that's how I would use this calculator and the average cost for the future. So if I have a 60-year-old, I'm going to look, what's that cost 20 years from now? And Genworth actually has a great cost of care calculator. You can Google it, just Genworth cost of care. They go by city. They go more granular than we do. All right, sales idea. RMDs. Think about your clients. You know, when you hit age 72, you have required minimum distributions for your qualified money, right? So many of these people are kicking and screaming about it. I don't need the extra income. I don't want to pay the taxes. Well, the government wants their money back. So let's say it's 15 grand that year coming out. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, how about we set 4 or 5 to the side, pay the taxes, and take 10 or 11 of this and buy you and your spouse long-term care policy for 10 or 11,000 a year. All right, or if it's 20,000, we're gonna buy one for 14 or 15,000. All right. So it's a good way to take that qualified RMDs and put it to use. Now let's go over here to stacking policies. 2 ways you can do this. So you can take the traditional long-term care and maybe just get a 3-year policy of good coverage. And then I layer on top of asset-based long-term care. So if I go through the Mutual of Omaha, I have a backup plan then, and I can tap into this asset base. But if I just use the Mutual of Omaha, that's done. I have the death benefit associated with my asset-based policy, so I get my money back. Okay, so that's one way, and many LTC specialists will do that at times, stack policies like that. Or another way to stack them is you use the Mutual of Omaha policy and you start when somebody's age 40. You got a couple age 40, so because they're so young, it's so inexpensive, you just buy them a small policy. So maybe you buy just $3,000 a month benefit with 2 or 3% inflation, and maybe 3 or 4 years. And then when you hit 50 or 55, you stack another policy for 3,000 or so on top of that. And now you layer it. because they have more disposable income 10 years from now. But you got them something early while they were young, and it's inexpensive. So it's another way that LTC specialists will get to people in their 40s and 40s, they'll stack policies. Bear market and retirement. Statistically, you're going to hit 4 bear markets in retirement. So Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you're pulling money out of your assets. Let's say that magical 4% or whatever that number is. And then you hit a bear market on top of it. And I think the average is around a 30% decline. And then Mr. Jones goes to the nursing home at $224,000 a year, or $270,000 in New York area. What's that going to do to your portfolio? They're going to put some stress on your portfolio? I think so. And that could potentially happen 2 or 3 times. All right. So let's take that off the table and transfer the risk. Right? So you don't have to worry about all that happening at the same time. Now, no single premiums. This comes from LTC specialists. If you're managing the money, it's not a big deal. But if you're going to a client that you don't have a strong relationship with, a referral or whatever, and you're coming in as the insurance expert, somebody else is managing that money, and you bring to them an asset base with a $250,000 or $350,000 single premium, what do they have to do? They have to they're going to go to their money manager and say, hey, I need $300,000. Why? I'm buying long-term care insurance. You don't need it. You can self-insure. And then there goes the sale. All right. So just something to think about. Asset-based products, I'll talk about them, are very good products, good companies. Just something from that perspective to think about. Assumptive close. I spent years in the home improvement business. So I went across the kitchen table and training people how to do that before I got into insurance 20 plus years ago. When I first came on at Genworth, I covered the wirehouses. So I had like Smith Barney, A.G. Edwards, whatever, Morgan Stanley, and smaller territory, and I do a lot of assisted sale. Close I used the most was the assumptive close. So I always made sure I had the application sitting right next to the table during the entire presentation. And as I go through it, if I'm getting the nodding heads and everybody's agreeing, and I go through that illustration, I have my setup, I'm going to position it, then I go through the illustration, and I'm getting no resistance. I'm just going to ask what's your social security number and what's your birthday, and start writing. 70% of the time, they're not going to stop me. The 30% of you, that's okay. Oh, I'm sorry. What's your concern? So well, we want to think about it just as a knee-jerk reaction, right? Want to think about it. Oh, I get that. That's fine. Let me ask you a question. Would 30 to 40 days be enough time to digest it? Oh, absolutely, John. That'd be fabulous. Perfect. Well, here's the thing. I don't know if you can get this. This is up to the carrier. Mutual of Omaha might not like you as a risk. But now I'm kind of doing a takeaway. I'm not even sure you can get it. So while you're thinking about it, let's fill out the application, submit it so that they're looking at it and digesting it themselves and seeing if you're a good risk. And if you are, they're going to send me a policy. It's going to take 30 to 45 days to do that. They send me the policy, I come to you, and I say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's the policy, yes or no, do you want it? That works very well on a way to get around. I want to think about it 30, 45 days. Top advisors will create illustrations with the client together. You can take our software, and whether it's Zoom or in person, the top people I talk to do this a lot. And actually, one of them's in New York. And what he does is once he does his setup and why it's important and all that, then pulls up the software, and we'll say, okay, let's take a look at a monthly benefit. Typically, I recommend maybe $6,000 a month, $7,000 a month, or $8,000 a month benefit to start with. And here's the rationale. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, what do you think you'd be comfortable with? Let's go in the middle of $7,000. Then you see what it does to the premium. Okay, we can do this for 3 years of coverage, 4 years, or 5. I can do 6 if you want. Now let's go with 4 years of coverage, and then that adjusts the premium, and they can go, ooh, that's a little more than we want. Maybe we go down, or that's not too bad. Let's go. Let's see what 5 years looks like. And now you start playing with the numbers together. Let's look at the inflation, shared care. So they helped create it, so they own it. It's now their policy. They helped design it. Sold. Okay, great way to do it. All right, CUI laws. And we have it in New Jersey.
Not New York.
New York, how about Connecticut? We got it in Connecticut by you. So here's what happens with this. This is a law that's dormant in all these states listed below. But you gotta keep in mind, Medicare and Medicaid are broken, more so than Social Security, because they pay for long-term care insurance and they weren't designed to do that. So in these states, they have the ability to turn this on. It's already on, but they have the ability to utilize this and say, like my mother had MS for 40 years, 20 years in a wheelchair. My father passes away. A few years later, we run out of money. She ends up in a nursing home on Medicaid. Well, if I was in Connecticut or New Jersey, the state could come after me and say, we want you to reimburse us for what we just spent on your mother. You got to reimburse the state, right? And there was a lawsuit in Pennsylvania where they went after the son, and the son sued and lost, and he had to pay back the state for what they spent on their mother. Now, I'm sure there was some extenuating circumstances. There was another one, I think, in South Dakota, but it's rare, but they can do this. So here's something I would talk about that could come up in the future, and another reason to transfer the risk and buy a policy. Talk about wealthier clients. They'll buy this. Many of them get it. Some don't, but many get that. Insurance has served them well over the years. All right. You understand the concept of using other people's money here, OPM. Oops. Right here, OPM, other people's money. Many of them made money using other people's money. You understand the concept of pennies on the dollar, leveraging, taking a small piece. Like Neil mentioned, I'd be 1% of your portfolio to protect a good part of it or all of it. All right. So a couple different stories. I was at an office recently in New Jersey, or I'm sorry, in North Carolina. They had just sold to a client that had a $50 million net worth. And I asked him, why'd you buy it? So because I'm not so sure that if I needed care, my adult children are going to be as worried about me as they are the money. And sometimes the more wealth there is, the more dysfunctional families get, right? So he wanted to ensure he got good care. There was another one I had helped 15 plus years ago when I was a gym client in Tennessee, had a $40 million net worth. It just went on claim last month, I believe, one of them. So they're glad to have it. And the other good story is, this is dated too, but I never forgot it. I thought it was profound. Client had $7 million net worth, and they asked Mrs. Jones, why'd you buy it? She said 2 reasons. One, when I get ill, my husband doesn't do a good job of taking care of me. Number 2, why would I give my money to the healthcare system when I can transfer the risk? I thought that was very profound and a great thing to use with wealthier clients. Could you self-insure? Absolutely. But why would you? Why wouldn't you transfer the risk? Why would you just give your money away? I had an advisor one time, also with wealthier client. This is years ago anyways. He said, John, I offered all my clients except the wealthy ones. Really? Why wouldn't you offer healthy ones? Well, they can self-insure. So well, let me ask you a question. He goes, yeah, I'm going to see a doctor next week, $5 million net worth. Okay, let me ask you a question. Let's say he has a house that's worth $1 million. There's a $5 million net worth. House is paid off. Would you tell him to cancel his homeowner's insurance? Well, no, why would I do that? Well, he's got $5 million. He can pay that. odds of it burning down are like 1%. Why would you transfer the risk? Why not self-insure that? Well, it doesn't make any sense because of leveraging. What's the difference here? Why risk your own money? Why give it away? Transfer the risk. All right. Another thing on here is loss of step up. This is a big one for wealthier clients. Now, the problem here is you have to keep an eye on this one. Biden wants to eliminate the step up in estate planning. But if he doesn't, this is one of the main reasons, especially with the ultra wealthy, to tell them to do this. So I'm 60 years old. I buy a stock at $10, and now at age 80, that stock's worth $100, and I have a long-term care that I have dementia. I go through my liquid money. Maybe it's $400,000. I go through my liquid money. Now I gotta liquidate something. If I liquidate that stock that was at 10 when I bought it, now it's at 100, I'm gonna pay taxes on that, don't I? So if I need that $224,000 for nursing home care, or the 270 actually in New York, I'm gonna have to take out 350,000, right? But more importantly, I lose the ability of step up in giving that to my adult children at $100 when I pass away. If I transfer the risk to Mutual of Omaha and let them pay that care, I protect that asset at $100. And I also didn't have to pay taxes on it for myself, my own care. All right. So loss of step up, but again, Biden's going after that one, so that could go away. So be careful with it. Second marriage concept.
Hey, John, before you move on, I want to welcome Tim Kennedy, who just popped into the meeting. Tim has a fantastic idea that we talked about actually on our radio program, which is unique to all these sales ideas that we talked about regarding reverse home equity line. Tim, you just want to discuss that real quick?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for introducing me. Yeah, so Tim Kennedy with U.S. Mortgage. I'm a certified reverse mortgage professional. So the whole idea, in line with long-term care, is maybe they don't qualify for long-term care or other things going on in their lives. The use of a reverse mortgage as a tool to mitigate loss with regards to a long-term care issue. Reverse mortgage is a tool that they could also use in addition to other tools in retirement to plan for a safe and secure retirement. So thank you, Neil.
We have a lot of people that we're talking to before you get to second marriage that are widowed or whatever, and they have their house that may be paid for and they're living on Social Security and they have no liquidity. So now they have reverse home equity lines of a reverse home equity line. So let's say you have a home worth on Long Island, minimum is 500,000 and you have no mortgage on it. You can borrow, let's say, $10,000 a year, not necessarily have to pay it back. Okay, take out $100,000 line, you only pay the interest on the $10,000, and with that $10,000, secure a long-term care policy for yourself.
Right. So Neil, I'm sorry, Neil.
That's okay.
Neil, in addition to that, so for example, if they had a $500,000 house, they qualify for a $250,000 reverse mortgage line of credit and only took out $10,000 a year, they're only paying interest on the $10,000 that they borrowed. Right. But the best kept secret of a reverse mortgage line of credit is the unused portion of that line of credit has a guaranteed growth rate factor to it. So the balance on the line of credit actually increases, so they'll have access to more funds later on in life.
Right. So it's a great hedge to buy long-term care insurance. I wanted to get to that. Also, Peter had asked a couple of questions. You talked about indemnity and reimbursement in the beginning, John, before we go on to second marriages concept. And Mutual of Omaha has a unique provision in their contract about that. And just quickly go over the difference between reimbursement, indemnity, and where Mutual of Omaha's contract stands and how that plays in. So
Sure. So to me, it's kind of a push, but we can make ours look like indemnity. When my mother passed, my father passed away, we had to figure out what to do with my mother. We knew we had limited funds, so we had two options. We could pay somebody cash. And then the concern is, what if they steal from you or whatever, but what if they don't show up? We had myself and 4 younger sisters who all work. I'm usually on an airplane, pre-COVID. And somebody doesn't show up, which one of us is going to leave work for 4 or 5 days while somebody else tries to interview and hire new caregivers or whatever, or caregiver. All right. Which one of us is going to track all the hours of she had MS in a wheelchair, would take more than one caregiver, and track all their hours and pay them. There was a lot of work associated with this. So we ended up hiring an agency, which was going to cost more money. We'd run out of money sooner, but we had no choice. All right. So people think about they just think, well, it's indemnity cash, and there's a lot of work associated with that. Now, all that being said, we can make ours look like indemnity if the caregiver has a certification. That doesn't mean a nursing degree. It means I went to night school for a week or something and got a certification on how to move people, lift them out of a chair safely, manage medications, whatever. You can pay that individual cash, just not a family member. So just a certification on our policy, you can pay somebody cash, we can make it look like indemnity. Not a problem. So good question.
But your policy is a reimbursement policy by its nature,
Correct.
and there is a cash portion of indemnity that's available on the policies.
There's also separate from that a cash benefit that is 25% of my monthly benefit, capped at $2,000 to start grow with inflation. But I can use that immediately. I don't have to satisfy my elimination period. Use that immediately. And I can pay a family member with that if I want, my daughter, whomever, while I'm using that smaller benefit. And then once, because in the beginning, it's intermittent care. I don't need as much care. All right. So it could be a couple hours a day or every other day. I can use that cash benefit for that. Now, once I need more care, then I can transition to my full benefit and would have to satisfy my elimination period. But great point, you know.
Right. Well, I know in my parents, you don't realize the things that you need until you need them. It's sort of like when I had a 2-year-old and I had to put gate locks on everything in the house for, the refrigerator included, so that she didn't, eat chemicals or go through the whatever. But for my father, for instance, when his back went out, he needed care. Who's mowing the lawn? Who's doing the maintenance on the house?
Right.
Who's doing all these other things that he would normally do? And, with that cash benefit, you could pay the landscaper, the roof repair guy, the this, the that. And it's a great benefit within your policy to have for somebody in need. There are other services that are necessary when you have a long-term care event, and whether it's temporary or permanent. Peter, we'll get into the tax treatment later. There's still a tax credit in New York State. John, I don't know if you know what that is, or Larry, do you know what that is?
I do. It's 20% in New York, 20%. The tax credit state.
Okay. 20% of the premium. Okay, so that's still available. And that's for qualified long-term care, which Mutual of Omaha is. A qualified long-term care policy. So you have to understand that's for a qualified long-term care policy, maybe not necessarily for a different type of hybrid policy. Specifically for Mutual of Omaha long-term care, yes, there's 20% tax credit.
Good point.
Okay, back to you, John. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. All right, second marriage concept. I'm a wealthier client and I want my money to go to my adult children. and I remarried, and maybe I'm worth $7 million. And my adult children may or may not like the new stepmom, possibly for 7 million reasons. But you come to me and say, hey, John, we know you want your money to go to your adult children. I'm gonna get a long-term care policy on you and your new wife. All right, second wife. That way, if you need care, Mr. Jones, you don't wipe out your assets. I'm gonna put return of premium on your policy. You gotta be age 64 and below to do return of premium. And to do that, the return of premium, I'm gonna make your adult children the irrevocable beneficiaries. So it can't be changed. You pass away, don't use it, you get your money back. Do the same thing for your wife, so she doesn't wipe out your assets for a significant portion. I'm gonna make your adult children the irrevocable on her policy. So not that anybody would do this, but so she didn't, you pass away, she doesn't change it to her children or anything. It's locked in. And now we've protected your assets and allowed, if you don't use it, money to go back to your adult children. So great way, second marriage as well to your client. All right, sign a waiver. You know, it's hard to create a waiver or whatever, but here's the thing. This is critical in retirement planning, especially if these are clients that you've done repeat business with, especially if you're managing money, that I would have them sign a waiver, and or the easiest way is maybe just sign the illustration that we reviewed, and I'm not interested in data. Initial it, whatever. And here's why. One, I want to emphasize that on how important this is, but two, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you don't get this, that's your choice, that's fine. But you go through your assets, or a major portion of them, as you get dementia, or Parkinson's, or MS, or ALS, or whatever. Who do you think is going to be mad and irritated and frustrated? Your adult children. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to come after me and try to sue me for not protecting your assets. This happened in Colorado a few years back. The advisor had actually shown them long-term care, but he couldn't prove it. Had no documentation. He lost a $600,000 judgment. And his E&O didn't cover him because it wasn't the client that sued him, it was the adult children. So now, one, this is to protect yourself, two, but to emphasize to your client how important this is. So that maybe they take a step back and go, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we should do this. So maybe they don't change their mind then, but they might a week from now or something go, hey, this is important, we better do this. And then the care coordinator service, you just want to be able to build up that this is a concierge service, especially for the wealthier client. You want things taken care of for you. So, you know, Mutual of Omaha has a care coordinator that give you 3 reputable in-home, assisted living, or nursing home. We'll lay out a plan of care for you. That same care coordinator will work with your family all the way through the claim every year, same individual, and help you adjust the plan of care. All right, so you want to lay that out. All right, here's a good thing to use. This is very easy. I got this from a very successful specialist. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, retirement A, you're making $100,000. You need care at home for one of you, and we're saying that that home care is around $51,000 a year, more so in New York. Your income just became $49,000 a year. Now, retirement B, $100,000, but they bought a Mutual of Omaha policy with a $7,000 a month benefit. So now they're getting an extra $84,000 a year to pay for that. So now their income's $184,000. Which retirement do you want, A or B? Easy thing to write down. Take a screenshot of that or a picture of it. Great way, a piece of paper to draw it out for your client. All right, in spirit of time, I'm going to skip through some of this here. This is good. Some clients are going to tell you, I'm going to self-insure. All right. So I'm gonna set $250,000 aside over here. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, what if I could show you a better way to self-insure? Better way to use that 250. So I'm gonna use a couple, age 55, now $5,000 a month. I know that's too low out there, but this is what I did. Everywhere, most of the country, this would be fine, or 5,500 would be good, most of the country. 3% inflation, 4 years each of coverage, full return of premium. That premium is $8,700. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, when you hit age 80, this will have grown to $1 million worth of long-term care coverage for you. $1 million. You're like, holy cow, John, that's great leveraging. But wait a minute, what if I don't use it? I paid in for 25 years. Yes, but I added return of premium. Again, age 64 and below, I could sell return of premium. It's $219,000 you'll have paid in, less than your 250. And if you don't use it, you'll get every nickel of that back. Full 219. So for the last 25 years, you've had peace of mind knowing this was going to grow to $1 million, and you had the biggest exposure in your retirement covered for that period of time. All right, so our return of premium is a great way to help answer that objection. What if I don't use it? I'm going to, again, in the spirit of time here, let me get to tax favorability. So I have C Corp, 100% write-off, my long-term care premiums. Same for my spouse. So this is the ideal situation. Now, if I'm a pass-through LLC, that's not a C Corp, S Corp, partnership, sole proprietor, I can write off my premiums. It's tiered by my age. So if I'm age 51 to 60, I can write off $1,690 of that premium. My wife is in the same age bracket, $3,380 of that. So on S Corp, it's on the K1, say health insurance expenses, you're writing $3,380. So that's a huge deal. Business owners love running things through their business. If you got a business owner or a doctor or a lawyer, a lot of times they have partners. So listen, we're going to run this through the business. Let's do it for you and your partner. And now you get 4 sales instead of 1. All right. Let's get to, we have an e-app you can utilize. We have brochures you can co-brand, put your name on. We have a great prospecting letter you can utilize. Here's a video, consumer video that is good. A lot of agents will send this to a client before they meet with them. It's 2.5 minutes long, and probably it's not showing up the main page of it, but anyway, it's 2.5 minute long. There it is. And or you can start a meeting with your client and show them this. All right. Last thing I want to cover, and we'll see if there are questions, is Mutual of Omaha versus asset-based. All right. Asset-based products are very good. There is nothing wrong with them. Very good companies. But not everybody can afford the Ferrari, I call it, as Neil called it, the Maserati. Okay, so great minds think alike. And instead of Ford versus the Ferrari, I kind of look at it like the movie, I kind of call us the Cadillac. So I told you our premium was $8,700 right here. Carrier A, one of the top carriers for asset base, same exact coverage, is almost $13,000. Carrier B is $11,000. But guess what? They paid $276 in. Carrier B's not even giving you a full return of premium. The death benefit's only $166,000. It's $100,000 short. And with Carrier B, good company, this is much better coverage. But they typically don't put inflation on the base policy. And if it's a couple, that's 33 months with no inflation. So when I hit age 80, I still have $5,000 a month over here benefit. If I'm self-insuring an extra $7,000, which out east would be minimal, That's $231,000 more out of my pocket to self-insure on top of the 276. So we play well when you add return premium. Also, if I don't add the return premium, I'm only $5,100 over here versus 13 and 11. So again, I'm not, if you can afford the Ferrari, go do it. Good companies, good products, but we do compete well here. All right, in spirit of time, last thing, centers of influence, the things you may want to partner with, CPAs, talk to their business owners, estate planning attorneys, divorce attorneys. I'm wealthy. My wife's attorney says, hey, John, she wants you to pay for her long-term care policy, part of the divorce decree. All right. And then look at money managers, IRAs. Sometimes they don't want to deal with it. They understand the need. They don't want to deal with it.
Hey, John, before you get off that page, or
Yep.
before you leave, you said something about a waiver. And I'm sorry, Scott's not here because I know he sells a lot of Medicare insurance. Is there a way, in New York, Medicare, I have a lot of reps that do a lot of Medicare insurance. And when you're doing a Medicare application, it clearly states it does not cover custodial care or long-term care. Is there a separate waiver that Mutual of Omaha has? To me, this is a great lead in, not at that conversation because you're not allowed to, for a representative to work with somebody doing mortgages to say, hey, let me follow up and discuss this with you. If you don't want to discuss, fine, but let me bring the topic up because you do have a moral and a legal obligation, being an insurance salesman in the house, even if you're selling Medicare insurance, to discuss long-term care, particularly because there's a waiver that this doesn't cover long-term care, but you have to discuss it, that it doesn't cover. And if you would like a discussion, use a waiver to set up that follow-up meeting to have that discussion about long-term care. Has that been used anywhere in the country? Because I certainly want to start promoting that. I think it's a great.
Not to my knowledge, and I think we probably, as an organization, probably compliant to be afraid to touch it, but we do Medicare, Medicaid stuff, so it'll be easy transition for us. But no, to answer the question, no. And one thing I want to mention, and maybe somebody else on here might know the answer to, and you may, Neil, because kind of alluded to a second meeting. I believe you're not allowed to go from Medicare planning to long-term care in the same meeting. Does that sound right? I thought I heard
Correct.
Pat nodding his head. So be careful and make sure it's a separate meeting. For whatever reason, you can't go from one to the other in the same meeting.
Right, but wouldn't it be nice to have a waiver to say, hey, by the way, as it states in here, this does not cover X. If you're interested in having a further conversation about it, and keep it on file if they're not.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yep. All right, I only have a couple minutes left.
It's okay, it's all good.
I have to jump off. So instead of hitting the slide, are there any other questions that you see? If not, then I'll go through this last slide.
Does anybody have any questions? Annette, Scott, Peter, Jeffrey? I think Peter popped off.
Very thorough, or I completely confused?
Listen, John, thank you. I know you cover the whole country, and we're very fortunate to have you and be part of Main Street Planning Group's efforts to educate people on long-term care. I think it's a tremendously important topic and important discussion to have, whether you're in the life business, mortgage business, legal business, accounting business. This affects everybody because it affects everybody's finances and it affects everybody emotionally when an event happens. Financially and emotional, this is the most important topic and discussion you can have with your clients that's so neglected out there that I gotta hammer it home. It's the last day of the month I could talk about Long-Term Care Awareness Month, but I talk about it every day. It's that important. And again, no matter what business you're in, this affects everybody. 70% of all of us after 65 will need some sort of long-term care, either in the home or but guess what? the other 30% of us will be taking care of that 70%, which means 100%, that's everybody is affected by long-term care. And John, thanks again for coming, and thank you everybody for attending. If you have any further questions, or you need quotes, or you need any information, you know where to reach me, Neil. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your Hanukkah. Enjoy your post-Thanksgiving and pre-Christmas, and great to see everybody. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
John. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to see you. Was there an end or a but? Oh, great. Thanks, everybody.